had a passion for business. Decided, okay, this is why I want to become a chartered accountant. And yeah, I think that's where it all started for me from a background. And I think I have to talk about like my parents' influence because one of the things, like we were having a conversation prior to this, is about the role our parents play in how we view the world and our mindsets. And I think one of the things that my parents were very good at is they never placed any limitations. I remember seeing Trevor Manuel, at the time when he was finance minister on the TV, and I said to my mom, one day, I can also be a finance minister. My mother didn't say, I know, what are you thinking? My mother's like, yeah, of course, sure, why not? And I think I was about 9 years old. I can remember that memory very vividly. And so I think, I've always had a passion for finance. I've always loved numbers, working with it, but also about people. And I think that's where, the CA profession, the accounting profession really caught my attention. I literally had a moment of contention where in grade 10, when you have to choose subjects, I did physics for like, I think, one term. I went to my parents, I'm like, I'm bored in class. When they're teaching me about the earth and how the light is refracting and whatever and reflecting, I said, no. I said to my mom, like, this is so boring. And I enjoyed, I said to her, like, I actually wanted to do business economics instead. And I really, really enjoyed business economics. Obviously, people were like, I know she's running away because it's hard. It wasn't that I was literally like bored. And my mother was like, what if you want to become a doctor? What if you want to? I said, no, I can guarantee you guys, I'm not doing anything science related. I'm definitely going to go into the world of business. So I think early days for Lornelle, that's where it started. And yeah.
So obviously that formed your worldview as a child, and especially when it comes to the world of finance and accounting and how it relates to business and society. Can you take us through your career path from working at PwC, Liberty, First Rand, and to starting at Link Advisory?
Okay, so my journey started with doing articles at PwC. So I actually went and did my articles at PwC in Kimberley. The reason I decided to do my articles at a smaller firm, so I wanted to still be under the Big Four because of the reputation that comes with working at these organizations. But I wanted a different type of experience because usually what happens is if you go to a Big Four, like let's say a PwC in Joburg, you would kind of have to choose already like what type of industries you wanted to work in, either if it's like financial services or, like FMGCs. And I was like, no, because I wasn't sure about what I wanted to do post articles, I didn't want to limit my experience. So I spent about 4.5 years at PwC in Kimberley. I always like to tell the story that I was unemployed for 4 days before I got my job after my articles.
So you finished. Where did you
So-
go to varsity?
I went to UCT. Yeah.
And you
Went to
there?
PwC, yes.
Okay.
And then, so when I was doing my articles, I remember when I'd finished, I had job offers from PwC, but I was really like, no, audit is not it for me. I mean, I worked on very big clients to very small clients. And I think if I reflect back on my journey, my time at PwC has played a big role even in the way I run my own practice now. Because PwC, if you go, you can ask anybody that has worked at the firm. They are very tech savvy. Like PwC is always front and center, looking at more efficient ways to do stuff. They've got really high standards in terms of how they want the quality of their work to be. And like they just have the best minds that work for them. Really, if you go to PwC, it's a very rewarding environment because you get to work with people that are also thinking at the same level as you. They really just thrive with like having an environment of high performers. And what I did in my time at PwC in Kimberley specifically, I audited things like a school, a lawyer's trust, De Beers pension fund, an SAA, a municipality. So my experience was really broad in the sense that now in my own career, like running my own business, I can go into any type of business and be able to give them advice, help them implement systems, advise them on implementation because of that kind of foundation that I had when I was working at PwC. So I think PwC really gave me, some good foundational experience in terms of like how businesses run, the different size of businesses. So I always say like that really played a big role for me. When I moved over to Liberty, that's when I moved to Joburg. That was in 2017. So I've been in Joburg since August of 2017. So I left PwC without a job. Obviously, my parents were stressed. They're like, how are you leaving without a job? I was like, no, I'm sure. I think I always knew that, like, I wasn't going to end up in Kimberley. Like, that was the be all and end all. And I always knew that I was going to go into business at some point, but I knew that it was not going to happen in Kimberley. I knew that I was there for a purpose, and that was for me to get my experience. And then for me, it was obviously to just move. And yeah, that's when I made the move. So I got a call 2 weeks before my articles finished. I literally didn't have a job. And I went for an interview, and then I got the offer. I was unemployed for like 4 days, and then I got the job offer. My parents were like, sure, thank you. Our child is not going to be unemployed. And I think it's like, it speaks to how our parents are still nervous about us going into business because of the nature of what it means to like run a business, you know?
Yeah.
So
it
yeah.
definitely begs the question as you're talking that as you're making these moves, some were actually locating you, probably based on your work ethic and how you were delivering and making your name in the industry. So you could have gone up the corporate ladder one way or another. What motivated the leap into entrepreneurship?
You know, Witness, one thing I can tell you is that if I think about my corporate career, is that I'm very solution orientated and I like to solve problems. So if I go into a space, I always say if I go into a space when I leave, whether it's a year or 2 years, people must see a difference. Like someone was here, someone made a difference. Things are better because that person was part of our team. And I think if I look back on my journey, even in my time at Liberty as well as my time at First Rand, there's a story that you can tell. People can tell stories about the work that I did when I was there. But I still felt like, okay, you're telling a company, I was in internal audit, you're telling a business unit to say, guys, this is the risk to your business, this is the controls, these are the things that you implement, but you don't really have control over like seeing how that really changes. It also depends on how long people take to implement that change. So yes, you're adding value, but is it really the maximum value that you can add? Also, my time in corporate, even though it was great from a work experience, I also found that I had challenges in terms of some of the environments were not really that great in terms of like my mental health, working extremely long hours. And yeah, like I said to you, I think for me, the big shift for me came when I lost my sister. So my little sister was 19 years old. We lost her on the 1st of Jan. It was in a car accident with a drunk driver. And I always talk about how my sister's passing was almost like a catalyst for me to have a real deep look inside to say, because I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do this entrepreneurship thing. I'm already deep within corporate. I'm now already almost 10 years in. I'm not going to leave now.